I always thought loyalty was enough. That if you gave your heart fully, if you stood by someone through storms and sun, you'd be safe. Rachel and I had 5 years of marriage behind us, and to the world, we looked like we had it figured out. She was beautiful in the kind of way that made you forget what you were saying mid sentence. Sharp, too. I admired her. Loved her, maybe too much. When she told me she was pregnant, I cried. I'd never felt that kind of joy. We'd been trying for years. The timing wasn't perfect, but I didn't care. I started painting the spare room before we even knew the gender. She smiled more in those weeks than she had in the past year. I thought we were finally stepping into a new chapter, the one we'd fought so long for. Asterisk, but something shifted in her, slowly, subtly. She grew distant, not in an obvious way, just more distracted, more guarded. She stopped sharing little things, stopped initiating touch. I chalked it up to pregnancy hormones. Everyone warned me it would be rough. I told myself not to overthink. Then came the first moment that didn't sit right. I was helping her with her phone. She dropped it in the sink, and a message popped up. It was just initials D, asking if she was okay. Harmless, maybe. But the tone was too familiar. She snatched it back like I was a stranger. Said it was a coworker being annoying. I let it slide. What else could I do? Accuse her of something I couldn't name? Asterisk the night Ava was born, I thought my chest would cave in from emotion. She looked perfect, pink, soft, fragile, and nothing like me. Everyone said babies change, features take time, but her eyes weren't mine. Her skin tone didn't match. Her chin, her mouth, none of it was familiar. Still, I held her close and whispered promises I meant with every piece of me. That I protect her, love her, be her safe place. Love isn't rational, it just is. So I kept those doubts buried, but they didn't stay buried. 3 months in, I was back at work. A casual lunch with coworkers, talking nonsense. Derek, a guy from accounting, pulled up photos of his niece. The moment I saw her, my blood turned to ice. The same dimpled smile. The same almond-shaped eyes. Same laugh line that Ava had. He was beaming with pride. I excused myself and sat in the bathroom for 20 minutes, shaking. I didn't want to believe it. Couldn't. But it stuck with me. That night, I looked at Ava for hours while she slept. My chest hurt. Asterisk, I found a testing kit online. I didn't tell Rachel. Didn't tell anyone. I took a sample of Ava's hair one morning while she napped on my chest. I mailed it in with my own and waited 12 days. Longest 12 days of my life. I started imagining worst-case scenarios. Then I'd hate myself for doubting Rachel. Then I'd look at the photo Derek had posted again. The cycle never ended. Asterisk, the day the results came, I opened them in the kitchen. Simple black text. Probability of paternity, 0%. Just like that, my legs gave out. I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring, rereading, hoping it would morph into something else. But the truth doesn't change when you're ready. It just is. I thought about confronting her. Screaming, accusing, asking why. But something in me broke beyond that. I realized no words would fix what she'd done. Asterisk, I packed a single bag. My wallet, some clothes, the envelope, and a burner phone. Left my phone behind. Deleted every trace of myself I could. Wrote a single note that just said, "Don't look." For me, walked out before sunrise. I didn't feel brave. I felt dead. The man I was, the husband, the almost father, he stayed in that house. I became someone else that day. Not out of choice, out of necessity. Because sometimes surviving means disappearing. And that's what I did. I vanished. They said I was missing. Technically, they weren't wrong. But I didn't vanish in the way people disappear from crimes or accidents. I erased myself piece by piece with intention. The city, the name, the life, I dropped it all like dead weight. I took a train west, then another, until everything behind me blurred into a single noise I didn't want to hear anymore. I found a small town with no expectations, rented a room above a hardware store, worked quiet, paid in cash, never asked. Questions, never answered any. I told the locals my name was Ben. They didn't press. Everyone here had something they were trying to forget. Asterisk time moved differently. Days didn't have shape. I didn't talk about Rachel or Ava. I didn't let myself say their names. My phone stayed off. I used email only to tell my mother I was alive. She didn't ask much, just cried the first time she saw me, then cooked. And silence the whole visit. I didn't explain anything, and she didn't push. But I saw her watching me the entire time, like she was counting the parts of me that weren't there anymore. Asterisk sometimes. I'd dream of Ava. In those dreams, she always ran to me, laughed when I swung her around, called me daddy, woke up soaked, and sweat every time. There was no peace, just distance. People think leaving fixes the pain. It doesn't. It just muffles it. Like cotton stuffed in your ears while the house burns down behind you. Asterisk, I started keeping a notebook, not a journal. I didn't want to process feelings. I wrote what I remembered. Her first words, the way her hair smelled, how she used to grip my pinky like it was the whole world. I wrote about Rachel too, not in hate, just in confusion. I couldn't understand how someone could pretend so well. To carry a lie so close to your skin that it becomes your second nature. Was I ever enough? Or was I always just a convenient placeholder? Asterisk letters came, not to me directly, but through my mother. Rachel wrote once a year, usually around Ava's birthday. My mom didn't want to show me, but I asked, read each one slowly. Rachel never begged. She just told me what I missed. Ava started walking, said her first word, started school, drew pictures of me. She never mentioned Derek, never said sorry. Only once in the third letter she wrote, I think I was waiting for you to love her so much you'd never ask questions. I'm not proud of that. I folded that letter and never touched it again. Asterisk I didn't date. Couldn't. Every woman I met reminded me of what I'd lost or what I couldn't risk. I didn't trust myself to see lies anymore. I didn't trust them not to wear the same smile Rachel had the night she lied to my face and said, she's got your nose. I hated how much I still loved them. Not Rachel, maybe. But Ava, that part never went away. You can't undo that kind of bond. Even when biology says it's not yours. Asterisk 6 years pass like that. One day, I found myself near the city again. Not planned, just traveling through, heading nowhere. I saw a school nearby, some kids playing outside. One of them had Rachel's eyes, my breath caught. She was older now, taller, hair tied in the same messy ponytail Rachel always wore around. The house. She laughed, then looked around, almost like she felt something. She didn't see me. I couldn't move. I stood there watching a life that had gone on without me. She was happy. That mattered. But I felt a hole open again, wider than before. Asterisk I didn't approach, couldn't. I'd left for a reason. I'd buried the past, but now it had a face again. I walked away. That night, I stayed in a cheap motel. Couldn't sleep. Looked at the old photos I still kept hidden deep in my bag. Not many. Just one of me holding her, minutes after birth. I stared at that photo for hours. Remembered how it felt to believe something was real. There's a cruelty in loving someone who's never truly yours. But there's also truth in it. Asterisk, I didn't disappear out of hate. I disappeared because I knew if I stayed, I'd become something I couldn't come back from. Broken trust turns into something dangerous, and I didn't want Ava to grow up with that. Even if she never knew, she deserved peace. I took the weight. so she wouldn't have to. That was my choice. That was my punishment. And I lived with it quietly every single day.
The letters stopped coming after the 7th year. I didn't expect them to last forever, but the silence that followed felt heavier than anything she'd ever written. I told myself it didn't matter, that I didn't care anymore, that the past had lost its hold. But the truth is, some wounds don't close, they just stop bleeding in public. Inside, they pulsed the same asterisk one morning. I opened the shop early. Rain was falling outside, slow and steady. I was stacking books when the bell rang. A girl stood in the doorway, not a customer I recognized. Slim, maybe 17 or 18, brown eyes. Hair like Rachel's. Something in my chest stirred. She stepped forward and asked my name, not Ben. She used my real one. I froze. She said someone had shown her a picture. That someone said I might be the man who used to read to her when she was a baby. I didn't deny it. I just nodded. My mouth couldn't move. She said her name Ava. It was like the air stopped working. Asterisk, she didn't ask why I left. She didn't cry. She didn't even seem angry, just confused. She said she had questions but didn't expect answers. She only wanted to see my face once. To understand what made a person disappear. I didn't explain. What would I say? That the truth crushed me. That I vanished because the silence was the only thing that didn't lie. Asterisk, I asked if she was happy. She said she had questions growing up. Too many blank spaces. No real stories about her early years. Rachel told her pieces, just enough to make her believe I had reasons. I said I did. But not all of them were right. I told her I loved her, even now. That love doesn't ask for permission. It just roots itself and refuses to die. She didn't say anything back. Just looked at me like she wasn't sure whether to hug me or run that asterisk. We sat in the back. I made tea. We didn't talk about the test, or about Derek, or betrayal. We talked about books, about small things. I gave her one of mine, an old copy of The Little Prince. Inside it, a note I'd written years ago but never gave. For the girl who taught me love before she spoke a word. She read it, then looked at me like she finally saw the man behind the disappearance. Asterisk, she asked if I ever thought of coming back. I said I did, too many times. But I knew seeing her happy from afar was the only peace I'd earned. I said leaving was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Not for Rachel, but for her. She asked if I regretted it. I said I regretted trusting. Silence to heal what needed to be faced. But back then, I wasn't the kind of man who could face it. Asterisk, she stayed an hour. When she left, she didn't say goodbye. Just said, maybe I'll see you again. That was enough. I didn't cry when she walked out. I just stood there, watching a piece of my soul leave with her, and I realized I could live with that. I had been living with it all along. Asterisk, Rachel never reached out again. I imagine she gave Ava her blessing to find me. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe closure, I'll never know. But I stopped blaming her long ago. Carrying anger was like drinking poison and expecting someone else to suffer. I let it go, piece by piece. Asterisk, Ava came back the next year. Then the year after that. Never on the same day, never with warning. Sometimes we'd talk, sometimes we'd just sit. She never called me Dad. I never asked her to. But in those hours, something unspoken passed between us. Something real. Something no blood test could ever touch. Asterisk, this wasn't a reunion story. There was no forgiveness wrapped in tears. Just two people, connected by pain, sharing quiet without needing to rewrite the past. I didn't get my old life back. Didn't want it. But I got something small, honest, undeniable. Asterisk, some truths break you, some truths define you. But the hardest ones, the ones that strip everything away, they're the ones that leave you free. Not healed, not whole, but human. And that, I learned, Is enough. Ava didn't come the next year. I told myself not to read into it, but absence has a way of whispering old doubts. I stayed busy, kept the shop running, filed memories like old books, too worn to reread, too painful to throw away. There was no letter, no message, just silence. The kind that feels like an answer even when it's not. I sat at the same table. We always shared, 2 mugs untouched, and convinced myself it was enough to have had those moments, brief as they were. Months passed, then came winter. A short letter arrived, no return address, her handwriting. I needed space. But I haven't forgotten. That was all. I didn't expect more. She had her life, and I had the edges of one. And that edge, while sharp, had kept me alive. Some part of me still hoped she'd return one day, even just to say goodbye properly. People asked why I never started over. Not just the name or town, but love. I didn't have an answer that made sense to anyone who hadn't lost the same way. You can't rebuild from a place that was never stable. You can't trust your own judgment after believing a lie so deeply. It becomes your home. I tried once. A woman named Elise. Kind, smart. But when she asked what broke me, I couldn't tell her. I ended it before it could turn into anything real. She deserved more than a half-present man living in shadows of a child's laugh. I saw Rachel again, unexpectedly. She was older, tired, standing across a street I walked daily. We locked eyes. She didn't move. I didn't wave. But something passed between us, heavy and unfinished. She didn't cross. Neither did I. I went home and stared at the letter she'd written years ago, the one where she admitted she thought love might be enough to hide the truth. That was her mistake. Mine was believing I could outrun betrayal without facing it. I burned the letter that night. Not in anger, just readiness. The past had said everything it needed to say. Weeks later, Ava returned. This time she looked different. Firmer, less searching. She said she had answers now. Not all, but enough. She didn't need to know every detail to understand what pain does to people. She said she respected my silence more now. That maybe leaving was my way of protecting what little dignity I had left. I didn't deny it. We sat for hours without trying to make it profound. That was the beauty. Nothing needed to be explained anymore. It just was. She asked if I was happy. I said I was peaceful. That's not the same thing, but it's better. In some ways, happiness is fleeting. Peace stays. She said she wasn't angry anymore. That she'd forgiven her mother, not because she deserved it, but because carrying resentment felt heavier than carrying absence. I understood that too well. She brought photos the next time. Her first school play. Her graduation. A picture of her with the man she was seeing. Kind eyes, genuine smile. She asked if I wanted to come to her college ceremony. I asked if it would make things messy. She said it would, but some things are worth the mess. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the image of her smiling with a cap on her head, pride in her eyes. She looked like everything I'd hoped she'd become, even when she wasn't mine to begin with. I went. Stood in the back. Didn't take photos. Didn't approach Rachel. But Ava found me after, hugged me tight, said, "Thank you for coming." That was enough. I left before the dinner. Some lines don't need to be crossed to be felt. I walked home thinking about how life doesn't offer clean endings. Just shifting shapes of what we can carry and what we must leave behind. I left. My marriage, my name, my future. But in doing so, I carved a space where truth, no matter how painful, could breathe. I didn't reclaim fatherhood. Didn't reclaim trust. But I reclaimed myself. The man who made the hard choice, not because it felt right, but because it was. The only path that didn't turn him bitter. That's a kind of victory no one cheers for, but it matters just the same. Ava visits once in a while. Not as a daughter, not as a stranger. just as someone who knows a part of me she never had to earn. That bond wasn't built on blood. It was built on absence, truth, and quiet loyalty. And that, in the end, made it real.